room. We're glad you're with us today, and we're celebrating and remembering this Memorial Day, and we're also going to continue in the series that we started 2 weeks ago entitled The Proverbial Life. Now, we kicked this off on Mother's Day, talking about Proverbs 31 and the proverbial woman. Now, this isn't one specific woman. It's not someone named Betty or Sue. These are the overall traits, kind of the overarching traits of a godly woman. We looked at that in week 1 of this series. Last week, we looked at what is part 1 of a 2-part message. Today will be the second part. And it is 2 women that consistently come up in the book of Proverbs. Now, these aren't actual women. These women are actually the personification of 2 traits. And those traits are wisdom and folly or foolishness. Last week, we looked at wisdom. And in our study of wisdom, we had one kind of major take-home statement, and it was this: every decision or crossroad has an opportunity for wisdom to be applied or ignored. Every new door that's opening, every new prospect, every conversation, every financial decision, every relationship decision, every decision or crossroad has an opportunity for wisdom to be applied or ignored. Now, wisdom is available to us. We looked at the book of James and saw that. Wisdom is available when we ask. He says, but when you ask, get ready for an answer and act on it. Do something with it. It's built on character. Wisdom's built on character. And there are blessings. There is a return. There are dividends that go with living a life of wisdom. Now, that was last week. Today, we're going to talk about the second lady. And this is not a feel-good message. As a matter of fact, it may be a little bit of a toe-stepper. But we're going to be talking about foolishness or folly. Would you turn with me, please, to Proverbs chapter 26, page 467 in the Bibles in the seat backs. Feel free to use your mobile devices as well. Proverbs 26. And as you're turning there, I'm going to read to you Proverbs chapter 9, because it kind of gives us an introduction to this lady folly. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 13 through 18. It says, folly is an unruly woman. She is simple and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house, on a seat at the highest point of the city, calling out to those who pass by, who go straight on their way. Let all who are simple come to my house, she says. To those who have no sense, she says, stolen water is sweet. Food eaten in secret is delicious. But little do they know that the dead are there, that her guests are deep in the realm of the dead. Proverbs 26, beginning at verse 3. We're going to read quite a bit of this one chapter now. It says, a whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, a rod for the backs of fools. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes. Stop right there for a second. Solomon is writing and saying, look, you got to answer a fool, or they'll think they're wise. But if you answer a fool, they're going to argue with you, and you're going to sound as foolish as the fool. Answer or don't answer, you cannot win when you're dealing with a fool. Verse 6. Sending a message by the hands of a fool is like cutting off one's feet or drinking poison. Like the useless legs of one who is lame is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. Like tying a stone to a sling is the giving of honor to a fool. Like a thorn bush in the drunkard's hand is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. Quick note here, being drunk and being a fool kind of goes hand in hand with Proverbs. Let's read on. Verse 10. It says, like an archer who wounds at random is one who hires a fool or any passerby. As a dog returns to his vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Go down to verse 17. It says, like one who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel not their own. Like a maniac shooting flaming arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbor and says, I was only joking. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without a gossip, a quarrel dies down. As charcoal to embers and as wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome person in kindling strife. Verse 24. Enemies disguise themselves with their lips, but in their hearts they harbor deceit. Though their speech is charming, do not believe them, for 7 abominations fill their heart. Their malice may be concealed by deception, but their wickedness will be exposed in the assembly. Verse 28, A lying tongue hates those it hurts, and a flattering mouth works ruins. This gives us kind of an upper level view of what the life and what dealing with a fool can look like. And Harold Wilmington, he was a theology professor. He gave us 4 fools that are recognized in the book of Proverbs. And these are the first 4 blanks in your outline. The first one is a simple fool. A simple fool. Proverbs 1:22 says, "How long will you who are simple love your simple ways? How long will mockers delight in mockery and fools hate knowledge?" The simple fool is the fool who doesn't think things through, who doesn't want to learn beyond what they have. They're content with what they know. They don't want to dig into knowledge. A simple fool keeps getting caught in the same patterns of life because they don't want to learn anything different. A simple fool has nothing to do with a simple lifestyle or liking vanilla ice cream or only wanting to dress in black and white clothing. A simple fool is a mindset that wants to limit itself in the source and scope of wisdom. I know enough. Studying that will take work. I'm content where I am. The second type of fool we see is a hardened fool. A hardened fool. Chapter 27, verse 22. It says, "Though you grind a fool in a mortar, grinding them like grain with a pestle, you will not remove their folly for them." Stubborn, hard-heading, not wanting to listen. They always want to do things their own way. They're a hardened fool. They're set on what they're going to do, and you cannot change them. You cannot change their mind. They don't care what wisdom says or what God has to say about something because they're bent on their own way, no matter what the circumstances may be. This may hurt, but I'm doing it my way. The third type of fool we see in Proverbs is the arrogant fool. The arrogant fool. Proverbs 21 and verse 24. It says, "The proud and the arrogant person, mocker is his name, behaves with insolent fury." This is a person who is just too smart for their own good. And if nothing else, they're smarter than you. They're better than you. They dress better than you. They sing better than you. They have better plans than you. Everything they do is better than you. Why? Because they're arrogant. They are all about themselves, what they understand, and what they can do. They're funnier. And heaven forbid that you actually have an answer before them. Because all of a sudden, you're a threat. Their life and their understanding is wrapped around what they know and what they can answer. They can't learn from anyone because there's no one as smart as they are. There's no one with as much understanding as they are. Arrogance just seeps out of their words and their attitudes. That's why the proverb says it's a mocker who talks like this. Because no one is on their level. And the fourth type of fool that we see, chapter 26 and verse 3, is a brutish fool. Dr. Wilmington describes him as a brutish fool, B-R-U-T-I-S-H. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the backs of fools. This is someone who's ready for a fight at every turn. Everything they do is like it's preparing for a battle. They don't base anything on wisdom. They base on what they can win. The argument, the fight, the position. They will win. Pain seems to be their only learning indicator. The threshold of pain is what they push themselves to. And this brutish fool is a hard one to deal with because you know whatever you talk to them about is going to be a fight. You know you have to walk on eggshells around them. You know that you're always walking on thin ice, and the heat of their temper can melt it at any second. It's the brutish fool. Now, before we go any further, as I read through these 4 types of fools, does anyone's face pop into mind with any one of these? The arrogant, the simple, the brutish, the hard-headed? Does anyone's face kind of show up in your mind? And then here's the hardest question. Is the face that pops up in your mind the one you see in the mirror? Because if we're honest, I think it's tough to realize, but we must realize we all have work to do in some of these areas. We all have work to do. God may be wanting to clean something up in you. He may be wanting to change something in me. And we may be missing it because we're playing the fool. We're too smart. We just want to keep it simple. We're too stubborn. It's our fight, and I'm going to win it. God has something he wants to do in us, but we can't go about it playing the fool. Sometimes we're that person. We're the fool. Now, before we move on, I want to clarify something, and this is the next point. There's a difference between being the fool and having a foolish moment. There's a difference between having that foolish moment and being the fool. Every one of us has foolish moments where you call them a brain freeze, a stupid moment, your freshman year in college, whatever it looked like. We all have those stupid or foolish moments. My wife was in labor with our first. And it was a Sunday, it was in January. We got to the hospital, she's getting ready to go. They gave her the epidural, and so she's good to go now. I watched that little pain monitor they have, and it goes way up. Those of you who have been in a delivery room, you may know what this is. And it goes way up with the pain levels, and then it comes back down. Now that the epidural's kicked in, she's not reacting with the spikes. As a matter of fact, she fell asleep. January, Sunday. That means playoffs. On went the TV. She's sleeping. Everything's good. Turn the TV on. Still remember, it was the Chargers and the Dolphins. I was excited, and she's sleeping, and I'm watching the game, and she wakes up, and the doctor comes in and says, it's time. So I did what every responsible man does. I turned the volume down. And then I heard, turn it off. And I knew. I learned. The other 3 kids, I never did that again. And I know you're proud of me for that. Foolish moments. We all have them, and we need to learn from them. Someone sent me a quote this week from an author by the name of Terry Pratchett. And the quote was, wisdom comes from experience, but experience is often a result of lack of wisdom. Wisdom comes from experience. Experience is often a result of lack of wisdom. The point of this quote is we have to learn from our foolish moments, or we will continue to play the fool. We'll do the same thing over and over. So what's the difference between the fool and the foolish moment? Is what do we learn in the moment when we may be being a fool? And do we learn from it, or do we keep doing it? Proverbs 26 and verse 11. As a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool repeats their folly. That foolish person just keeps going and doing the same thing over and over and not learning from it. And as we look at this picture that Solomon is painting, it's not a nice one. Many of us have probably seen that happen as the dog returns to his mess, as the dog returns to his vomit. Everyone around is going, oh, that's disgusting. Stop. The dog doesn't care. And it's the same thing with a fool. We watch a foolish person return and repeat the same practice. And everyone around him goes, oh, here we go again. And the fool just walks right back into it. There's a foolish moment. And then there's a foolish person. We have to learn from our mistakes. Do we learn and do we get back on track? Why in the world would someone do this? Why would the fool return to the practice? Why would they keep doing the same thing over and over? And a big part of that answer is that they continually live for their own satisfaction or fight the fight they want to live. It's a pattern that has to be broken. I want to give you the illustration of a kite. How many of you have ever flown a kite? Can I see a show of hands? All right, many of you have. You have that kite, it goes up on the string, it's pretty cool. Now I want you to think about it for a moment from the kite's perspective. Here's this kite high above everyone else, soaring through the clouds, flying in the sky, and it looks above itself and it says, there's so much more I could do. There's so much more fun I could have. I feel the wind underneath me. I'm doing tricks, I'm doing stunts, but I've got this stupid string that's holding me back, and that person down there holding the string who's limiting what I can do. You ever seen a kite without a string? It lays on the ground, flops around with the wind. If it's lucky, it may catch the wind a little bit and smack right into a tree. It's that string. It's sometimes those boundaries of wisdom that allow us to stay up in flight. It's the one who holds that string, who keeps our life on track and keeps us out of the trees and keeps us from smacking into a tree and keeps us from flopping around on the ground. A fool sees it as a limit instead of as an opportunity, as a guidance. And there's a scripture that Christians love to quote, but usually use it as a finger pointer at others. But I think it's something we need to use to check our own heart. It's in Proverbs chapter 14. It'll be up on the screens. Proverbs 14 and verse 1. It says, "The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. Their deeds are vile. There is no one who does good." And we like to look at it and say, see, the atheists, they're the fool. But what about people who say, yeah, there's a God, but we live as if there's not. We live the fool. There's an author, a pastor by the name of Craig Rochelle. He wrote a book called The Christian Atheist. And in it, he continually brings us back to the place of asking tough questions. We claim to be a Christian, but do we live as if we're an atheist? Do we believe in God, but don't really know him? Do we believe in God, but think he's not fair, so we need to handle this ourselves? We need to make it fair. I believe in God, but I trust in money. Do we believe in God, but we pursue happiness for ourselves at any cost? We say we believe in God, but let's not go overboard with that. Do we believe in God, but always fight the fight because it's our fight and I have to win it? And I don't know if God's answering prayer today. We live as a practical Christian atheist. We can live the life of a fool. Secondly, so the first thing we see is the difference between being a foolish moment, but then continuing on and being a fool. If we continue on and being a fool, and this brings us to our second but harsh lesson, and you'll either learn it this way or learn it the hard way, and that's this: a fool cannot be trusted. A fool cannot be trusted. But she's beautiful. But he made me a lot of promises, and this time I think he's going to stick to them. But they have so much potential. The potential of a fool will always stay hidden until they begin to embrace and walk in wisdom. A fool cannot be trusted. I sold cars for a little while, and I can honestly say that while I sold cars, I never lied about a used car, ever. If it was a bad car, I said it was a bad car. If it's a good car, I said it was a good car. But I watched some people who were in that business, some of them were bottom feeders. One of them had a family member come in, and they're talking to their family member, and they showed their family member a black car of what they wanted, and the family member said, I was hoping for more of like a dark blue. And the guy said, come back tonight. Same car. He told his family member it's a dark blue version of that car. Sold the person the black car at night because they bought it that it was a dark blue car. You cannot trust a fool. You will get played. Verse 6, 7, and 8 of Proverbs 26 says, sending a message by the hands of a fool is like cutting off one's feet or drinking poison. Like the useless legs of one who is lame is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. Like tying a stone in a sling is the giving of honor to a fool. You cannot trust a fool. And you don't have to be a veteran Christian and Bible savvy to see that the Bible is true when it spells out the cautions of foolishness. Verse 24 through 28, it says, enemies disguise themselves with their lips, but in their hearts they harbor deceit. Though their speech is charming, do not believe them. For 7 abominations fill their heart. Everything seems good on the outside, but in the inside, they're stabbing you or taking advantage of you or figuring out how to do it. Verse 26, their malice may be concealed by deception, but their wickedness will be exposed in the assembly. You cannot trust a fool. Do not trust a fool. Do not get sucked into their life. We talked about this last week. Some people live their drama out loud, and it's only to be seen. They don't want a solution. They don't want help. They don't want to fix anything. They just want you in the front row of their show. And I've learned to say, not my circus, not my monkeys. Learn where to draw the limits on a fool. Put a buffer in place. And when they want to learn, when they want to embrace wisdom, They can begin to move forward. If you choose to ignore wisdom and you choose to trust foolishness, you're throwing your eggs in one basket of a fool, you must understand, this is the next blank, it will be harmful to others and to you. Being a fool is harmful to others and to you. My father-in-law gave me a statement one time, didn't think much of it, but boy, it's proven to be true, and it's this: if someone wants to show you their true colors, let them. When someone wants to show you who they truly are, don't blow it off. Learn from it. Spot the fool and keep your distance. Are they always looking for a fight or always in a fight, coming back later going, I'm sorry, I got a little wound up on that? Learn from it, or you will constantly be in their battle. Are they always broke? Are they always out of money? Just one more time, learn from it, or you'll continually throw money down the black hole. Are they always bragging at your expense? Always building themselves up by putting you down? Learn from it, or they will be standing on your head. You must learn from it, because a fool will hurt you and they will hurt others. Verse 10 of our chapter says, like an archer who wounds at random is one who hires a fool or any passerby. Verse 18 and 19, it says, like a maniac shooting flaming arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbor and says, I was only joking. They'll hurt you, they'll hurt others. Verse 28, it says, a lying tongue hates those it hurts, and a flattering mouth works ruin. The book of James gives us a stark contrast between the life of a fool and the life of someone walking in wisdom. It's James chapter 3. It'll be up on the screens. It says, who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, of the devil. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace raise a harvest of righteousness. Peacemakers who sow in peace raise a harvest of righteousness. There's a stark contrast in the response of a fool and the response of one walking in wisdom. And I want to give you a challenge right now. If you have been hurt by someone who has been the fool or stuck in their folly, you must forgive them. You have to forgive them, or you will begin taking on their traits. You'll become hardened. You'll become simple. You'll start to become arrogant and want to make yourself better than the others. You'll be ready for a fight at any turn. Forgive them. Let it go. And this is hard. You may bear the scars. You may bear the burn marks of dealing with a fool, but you must forgive them. And this is really hard when it's been someone you love. When it's been someone you care for, and you tried again, and you put yourself out there one more time, only to be taken advantage of. Learn from it. Set the boundaries you need to in wisdom, but you need to forgive them. Let it go. I just want to remind you that Christ forgave us while we were still his enemies. Christ let our sins, our wrongdoings against him, go to the point of dying for us. And as that forgiveness has been shown to us, we need to show it to others. And I'm not saying it's easy. This is something God's been dealing with me on. I'm not saying it's easy. But little by little, begin the practice when their face or their name or that event pops up in your mind, to release it, let it go. Forgive them. We've looked at some tough stuff. This is challenging to do, especially if the biggest fool you're trying to deal with is the one you see in the mirror. But how do we do it? How do we make the changes? And we're going to go to our go-to scripture for this whole series, the one we'll look at every week, and it's Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. And what I'd like us to do is, can we please, if you're watching online or if you're in the family room or in the lakeside room, can we all read this out loud together? Let's start by saying the chapter and verse. So it's Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. God has made wisdom available. As we saw in James 1 last week, ask him. Learn from people who are farther along than you are. Submit to his ways and stop fighting for our ways like a fool. At both the large and the small lobby tables, there's an insert for our Spring Lake University classes. It's an opportunity to grow in wisdom. You continually finding yourself in the same mess financially? Financial Peace University. How to have our finances and our stewardship in line according to biblical, godly wisdom. Coming into the same health problems over and over again. We have a class coming up for renewing your body for discipleship. How do I handle my health and my body biblically? We have another class that's going to be available, How People Change. Looking at the process of seeing changes go on in our life. We have a counseling ministry that's available through Spring Lake. You can go on the website. There's a place you can click on and find out more about that. Feel free to call the offices if you can't find it on the website. It's there. But feel free to call the offices if you need someone to talk to, just to start the conversation. But we have people of wisdom, people who have been trained, some who have learned the hard way. Don't get stuck in your foolishness. And if you are there, don't stay there alone. Embrace wisdom. Learn. Grow. It's not self-help. It's submission to God. We don't need to be the kite without the string. I'd like us to one more time read this together in closing. Let's say the Proverbs together. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight.